Welcome back to my classroom. It's a beautiful day. Matt Dominguez here with another teacher-to-teacher tip. This one's on worldviews. I thought I'd give you a little visual here with all the crazy highlighted stuff on mine. And I've been using this article for a long time. One of the reasons why I picked it is it's short and sweet. I want to get students to read about philosophy and to dive into it. It doesn't have to be long to create discussion. And a couple of key things that I focus on with Worldviews is their interaction with the text. I want them to respond. I want them to find quotes and respond. It's pretty easy to tell if they've read this article or not. I like them to highlight it with color and to come in and we do a little care and share time talking with each other about their response to it, especially some of the dated material, which I think is interesting. But then I model for them what I want to do for the rest of the semester. I pick a quote and I talk about it. I talk about the Lewis Carroll quote at the beginning, and one of the things I think is important for them is to understand something like Alice in Wonderland, where you have Lewis Carroll, this genius mathematician, who's trying to help the world around him understand what's going to happen if we chuck the concept of an objective absolute. I wonder what it would be like to have no objective absolutes. And Alice runs down that rabbit hole. The adults weren't listening to him, so he tells the kids, and the kids get it. They totally get it. Alice is crying within a few minutes of going down that rabbit hole when everything's just all over the place, and eventually the queen's going to chop off your head because she wants to. It's crazy, it's chaotic, and a lot of people blame him for whatever he was on for that story. It's supposed to be weird. There's no meaning to it, and it's totally random. And it's a great way to start the process of like, oh, these fun little Disney movies that I've seen actually have this whole nother layer of philosophy to them. But then also, B, like, what would that be like to live in a world without objective truth? And so I lean into that, and I take that quote and I talk about it and kind of model for the class and then invite them in on the quotes that they see. The other one that's essential to cover is the quote where he says, "The questions are ultimate because there are answers. What you believe or don't believe is not going to change what happens when you die." If nobody asks about that quote in class, that's a great litmus test for where your students are, because that quote is totally ambiguous. It quite frankly, it bless Professor Browne here, but the ambiguity of that quote can show what can happen if you are not careful in philosophy. And to realize that what you believe doesn't affect what happens when you die, he wasn't trying to say that. What he was saying is that what you believe doesn't change objective truth. And it's a great quote to talk about A, ambiguity, but B, what actually happens with our beliefs. And our belief does affect, it does have consequence, which is a whole nother part of this course on the trust list especially. Third thing that I cover that I think is huge, and it's a great opportunity to really set the stage, is a quote here where he says, "Your worldview is both your view of the world and for the world. You may not live what you profess, but you live what you believe." I love to literally lean in. I can't lean in too far because of the cameras right now. Don't want to get blurry, although that's a good metaphor. But I really lean into that with the students because they'll agree on one hand, we do live what we believe. It's inescapable. If you believe you should give to the poor, you will. If you don't, you won't. Right? And I kind of lean into that and get kind of even pushy on the students with that one to try and help them understand what is belief. How does belief actually work? The crazy teacher tip here is to actually help the students understand that in that moment, I end class by having students stand up. I'm not going to do that right now, but stand up in front of their chair. And we talk about the function of belief and how we can't, paradoxically, we can't separate belief from action. And we totally can separate belief from action at the same time. It'll drive them nuts, but it sets a great tone for the course, and it also introduces paradox. I have them stand in front of their chair, and I'll walk around the room, and I'll ask them all to confess with their mouth if they believe the chair behind them will hold them up. And then I'll ask them if they believe in their hearts, whether or not the chair will hold them up. And almost everybody will say, well, yeah, this chair, of course the chair will hold, so I believe that it will hold me up. And then I say, do you have to sit in order to have that belief? And it creates a fabulous discussion. I almost kind of want to leave that as a teacher tip there, like letting that linger for a little bit, and then talk about the consequences of that in our philosophy of what is belief, where does it sit, and how does it affect our actions? It totally does, but also we can separate them, and that's super complex, but it's an important distinction to make, especially when we get to faith. Because when it gets down to grace, we are saved by grace through faith, through belief, not by actions. And yes, faith without actions is dead. Further up and further in.